Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 Good Minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson. We're continuing our study of the Gospel of Matthew, and we're in chapter 20. And we're going to read verses 1 through 16. It's one of the longer parables in the book of Matthew. And it's the parable of the workers in the vineyard, and they come to work at different times during the day. We have to remember that most people were day laborers, and they found work day by day, and they were paid a denarius for a day's work. That was a day's wage for a day's work. Let's also remember that the last thing Jesus said in chapter 19 was that many who are first will be last, and the last will be first. And he uses that to talk about the blessings that we have in the kingdom that the world doesn't see. That nice guys finish last. Another aphorism that we're familiar with. And Jesus says, no, they don't. No, they don't. You think they do, but they don't. That's not the way it is at all. But he's going to use this at the end to apply this parable. And this is a continuation, but there's a bit more nuance to this than what he's just said. And let's not forget as well that these people who are listening to him are Jews, and it's not going to be very long. He's headed to Jerusalem to be crucified. We're at the end of his public ministry before Gentiles are going to be entering the kingdom, and there's going to be resentment. And the Jewish Christians of Jewish background, are going to feel a sense of ownership that they think they have, that the Gentiles can never have because of their long history with God. So that's being dealt with as well in this parable. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early one morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. And when he had agreed with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And then he went about the third hour, and so he started at 6, this is 9 o'clock, and saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And to those he said, you too go into the vineyard, whatever is right I will give you. So they went. And he also went the 6th hour, that's noon, the 9th hour, and that's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and did the same. And about the 11th hour, so 5 in the afternoon, he went out and found others standing and said, why have you been standing idle all day long? And they said, because no one's hired us. And he said to them, you two go into the vineyard. And when evening had come, so they're working until dark. So maybe they worked a couple hours, maybe 3 or 4, I don't know. Probably 2 or 3 hours. When evening had come, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last group to the first. So he's paying those people who had worked maybe 3 hours with those who had done more than a 12-hour day. And when those hired about the 11th hour came, they each received a denarius. And when those hired first came, they thought that they would receive more, and they also received each one a denarius. And when they received it, they grumbled at the landowner, saying, these last men have only worked 1 hour. So maybe they only worked 1 hour, or maybe that's the way they feel about it. And you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden and the scorching heat of the day. But he answered and said to them, friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go away. But I wish to give this last man the same as to you. Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with what is my own? Or is your eye envious because I am generous? Thus the last shall be first and the first last. I think we easily identify with the workers who worked the 12, 13-hour day. I think we do. And I think if we were honest with ourselves that we are sympathetic with the brother of the prodigal son in Luke 16, because the math facts are correct. You know, I mean, nothing that the father in Luke 16 can give to the prodigal son, there's nothing he can give to him that doesn't really ultimately belong to the older brother. And in this case, It just doesn't seem fair to give someone a day's wage for an hour's work or 2 hours work whenever someone else has worked all day. But God reminds us of some facts when we think life isn't fair, when we think that certain people are getting things that they don't deserve, or that people have an easier time of it, or God has not blessed me like he's blessed someone else. We don't know everything. Let's not forget that. Let's also forget that God doesn't owe any of us anything. God possesses all, and he can do with those resources whatever he wants to. He is God, and we are not. And God has treated us fairly, more than fairly. We have more than we deserve. Even if Jesus had not come, we have more than we deserve. If the wages of sin is death, and we're permitted to live 70 years and commit 70 sins a day, then we've been given many, many years of life that we did not deserve. Is that not true? I mean, those are math facts that are just as hard and accurate as the ones we've mentioned before. God gives grace, and we never have the right to question that grace. And we just should be as happy about the grace God gives others as we have been about the grace God gives us. Now, that's the message to the older brother and the prodigal son, and that's the message that Jesus is sharing with us here, and also giving us a warning, because there is a warning in this, not to question God, that God is the one who controls, and God has the right to decide, and God is more than gracious with all of us. Okay. We're going to have a definite break in the events. Jesus is about to enter the city of Jerusalem in chapter 20, verse 17, and we have this episode not next time, but the time afterward, where we have to deal with the ambition of James and John, or at least the ambition of their mother, which is kind of part of the whole piece of cloth about possessions and ambition and getting ahead that we've been talking about for a couple of chapters now. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes.